Malekith the Witch King is widely known as the Darth Vader of the Warhammer Fantasy universe, but after this battle, Skulltaker might very well snatch that crown. There's one element of this demon's kit that I will readily admit I underestimated, and it can turn a solid legendary lord into a one-man army. I am not playing in this battle. It's Ora del Sakeo on Khorne and Giamma on the High Elves, two very experienced multiplayer guys, and it led to quite the spectacle, so strap in. It's gonna get wild. As for the DLC itself, Omens of Destruction will be live on Steam at 10 a.m. EST, 3 p.m. GMT today. So if you've liked what you've seen, feel free to go purchase it. If you haven't, then don't. But if you'd like to support my channel and plan on buying, you can go through my solid affiliate link. It's the official Sega retailer. Same deal as always. It's a Steam copy of the game. Link will be in the pinned comment and description below. But depending on when this video goes up, it may be a bit before you can actually purchase. Alright, so HDS is commanding the Rage Monsters of Khorne. Very cool and thematic build here. Skulltaker leading a host of Bloodcrusher juggernauts. He has a variety of buffs and debuffs to make him great at leading hosts of cavalry or for dueling enemy lords, but Cloak of Skulls is the item that transforms him into a different animal and the same beast. The armor and missile resist is nice, but it's that immune to flanking that's huge, because while he's on Kultyron, he has a big hitbox and suffers mightily when surrounded if you don't bring the cloak. With it, he receives 0 penalties from the flank or rear, which can make him insanely hard to kill. Unfortunately, there is a bug currently with Unyielding Assault, where your melee attack will still drop from fatigue and exhaustion. That is not supposed to happen. It's been logged by the devs. Will either get fixed today or the first hotfix after that. So we haven't even seen his final form yet. As for the rest of the army, 2 Bloodcrushers, 2 Fleshhounds, 2 Warhounds as a mobile element. Going to be operating around Skulltaker's Locusts of Fury. Bloodwake Berserkers, some of the nastiest AP infantry in the game right now. Crazy expensive, but they have armor sundering and explode when they die. 2 Khorne Gore that become temporarily unbreakable once their HP drops below 50%, and a bunch of Marauder chaff in the front ranks. As for Giamma, Sentinels of Dusk have 2 Shadow Walkers, fun unit with 180 range and poison, decent in melee too, and right from the jump they'll start targeting the 80 armor on those Bloodwake Berserkers. 2 Illyrian Reaver Archers, Pure Main Company, 2 Warlions, and Illyrio the Radiant on her Great Eagle, Star of Avalorn, Earthblood, Foz Protection. Great support lord who can be anywhere at any time. In the rear, some fancy looking Dragon Princes. They're sexy and they know it, and a unit of Swordmasters in the front ranks, which should help tremendously in the melee grind against these Khorne Gore and Wrathmongers. So for HDS, initial stages are all about aggression, duh, it's Khorne, but it's with those mobile elements that he'll try to push that to its advantage, and he's going to try to execute a flank overload with that speed advantage that he currently has. He wants to isolate those Dragon Princes and overwhelm them early, but we're actually going to see a really nice bait here with those ever-shifty Warhounds. A lot of players don't like skirmish mode because you lose some control over where a unit retreats to, but this start will be brutal for the Shadow Walkers. Like I said, experienced players, both of them, but this is for sure a blunder. Must have been microing elsewhere, and he will be slow to get them out of danger and notice it. They already earned 400 damage value against the Wrathmongers, so not a complete travesty, and certainly not game-losing, but not the way you want to start a battle. They will basically no longer be fighting effective after that engagement. Marauders finishing off the remnants of that unit. Now, as y'all know, I love me some animations. That's why I do the close-ups. I think y'all love them too. I was sad to see Wrathflail chain weapons using the Warhammer 1 basic Marauder and Chaos Warrior attack chains. It's probably the most overused animation set in the entire game. I would love to get a bit more variety, especially when it comes to the Hyper Elite on the Chaos and Norskin rosters, but lame animations or no, functional or no, when they hit Azure Spearmen, Owls will literally explode. They will be ripped asunder in very short order, and that'll open up some gaps in the Azure line. So HDS will move on to the flank overload, Bloodcrushers and Fleshhounds fighting around Skulltaker to make use of his support auras, and the Khorne Gore Halberds will not be far behind. The only way High Elves can hold back the tide there is with good support play from the Ever Queen. Some timely Stars of Avalorn, Earthbloods, and Foz Protection. Because the frontline melee fight probably isn't going to go too great either. With that said, I'd say it's pretty intelligent for Khorne to retreat on the right side once Locust of Fury has gone on cooldown, because Bloodcrushers are not going to perform very well in sustained melee combat. They're surprisingly squishy, considering the fact they're riding mechanical demon rhinos from hell with a ton of armor. So when the melee attack buffs wear off, pretty smart to disengage and look for a juicier opportunity than a well-supported unit of Dragon Princes, who, as long as when they have martial prowess, are going to be a pretty tough nut to crack. They are trying to escape right now, debuffed by Bloody Onslaught from Skulltaker, who's giving them no quarter, no mercy whatsoever. And some Fleshhounds in the rear probably got a little bit overzealous and tied down by the Illyrian Reaver Archers. Will probably end up dying over there in the back. Earthblood hitting the Spearmen and Dragon Princes over on this side. Blood Crushers getting very aggressive, and now a bit of a pincer maneuver between them and the Bloodwake Berserkers coming in from the other side. They ripped those Azure Spearmen a new Butholio, pushed through the carnage, and have linked up with the main Blood Crusher force. So early stages, feels like this is all Khorne, although Larry's doing her best this time to tie with healing. Star of Avalor lighting the darkness, while the Pure Main Company fight both units of Khorne Gore. In the center, Spears and Swordmasters should mirror what the Wrathmongers have already accomplished, a melee blunder that will not go the Blood God's way, but HDS has the fight he wants with the Dragon Princes, who are just being drowned in bodies. So much chaff and mobile elements swarming over their number over on the left flank of the High Elves, and that flank is in imminent collapse right now. Their center and rear is sturdy. The High Elves are holding wherever they can. They did beat back some of those attacks in the rear of their army. And the War Lions and Illyrian Reaver Archers are still doing what they can to just provide some bodies and mass and slow down this aggression. And somehow the Dragon Princes are still alive, man. Like, they are all spread out all over the battlefield, caught between like 4 different units, but Faucet Protection and the Earthbloods and Star of Avalorns have really kept them alive in a situation that I would not have expected them to still be. But they're dying now. Finally, it's the end for them. They will be remembered. An admirable job of giving the rest of the High Elves the time they need, and they made the Blood God bleed. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Now, the Wrathmongers have collapsed into the center, finding the 2nd or 3rd Azure Spear unit they've gotten their chain flails into, and this is going to get really ugly for the Azure once again. They need the Swordmasters to deal with these Bloodwake Berserkers, or they're just going to end up rampaging through the entire army. Swordmasters in the front ranks finished up with the Marauders, and they must have carved through 2 full units there. Already up over 100 kills, causing all kinds of havoc there. This is going to be an interesting fight. I would expect the Swordmasters to do very well in that engagement, but the Fury of Khorne activating on all these Khorne Gores, it'll make them unbreakable at a time where they really don't want to be unbreakable. Right now, they're just fighting Azure Spears. We're going to get a good look at what the Swordmasters were doing while we were watching everything unfolding over on the Khorne right flank, while the Blood Crushers were trying to push through the Dragon Princes. Swordmasters were slicing and dicing, dude. Marauders relieved of their heads, their appendages, their limbs, everything going flying in a whirlwind of destruction. And now that really important fight is coming up between the Swordmasters and the Wrathmongers. Not sure who's going to win that one. Khorne Gores were just fighting spears, so being unbreakable, not super useful there. I don't think they were really in imminent danger of breaking. Ideally, you'd want that ability to activate when like a heavy cavalry or monster charge comes in from behind and you might break, and you just need them to hold on a little bit longer. Kind of wasted fighting Azure Spears, but now that the Swordmasters are into the fight, things are going to get very, very interesting. Nice Earthblood from Larry. She's trying to escape right now. She's being hounded by a bunch of, well, hounds, and she can't take off. So that could be a big problem because she's been pushed out of this engagement entirely, which means no support, no Faucet Protection, no more Earthbloods in the center here. And we're coming up on a really important fight right now. Now, the 2nd unit of Shadow Walkers have been used great. They are still alive and still have about 1/3 of their ammunition remaining. They would love to get some shots into the Blood Crushers and finish off the mobile elements for Khorne's side. But of course, shooting the wielder of the Cloak of Skulls, Uncle Tyron, is not going to work out all that great. Now, his cloak is not active at the moment. We haven't called Skulltaker's name much. He only has 12 kills. To be fair, most of that was on Dragon Princes. Might have gotten a couple chunks in on Larry, but he has a extremely important role to play coming up. Because this Khorne army is beginning to run out of steam, honestly. The Blood Crushers are getting low. The Wrathmongers are going to be forced into a fight with the Swordmasters, who, at this point, will probably end up winning that engagement. Swordmasters are at half HP, Wrathmongers are at about 1/3, and the Swordmasters are simply better in this role. Even though the splash attack should help the Wrathmongers a lot, the Bloodwake Berserkers typically are not going to trade so cost effectively into armor-piercing bonus versus infantry types of troops. Now, the Swordmasters did not get their charge bonus off. We're seeing a lot of crumbling from the Fleshhounds around, and the Bloodwake explosions every time one of those models dies will equalize things a little bit, but it's not a crazy amount of damage. It's more just a supplement when they finally go down. And in fact, while the Blood Crushers were breaking the Pyramid Company, we turned away for just a second, and the Bloodwake Berserkers are pretty much dead now. The elite infantry for both armies truly showing out. Bloodwake Berserkers probably killed 3 full units of Spearmen and did a lot of damage to the Azure Swordmasters of Hoeth, but the Swordmasters are going to win that fight up to 1,700 value. And now the battle lines have completely broken down, and mobile elements should be able to feast. Balance of power shifted a little bit in favor of Khorne, but that's hardly an indicator of where this battle is going. Still very much up in the air. Skulltaker going after the Shadow Walkers, who are really just trying to extract as much value as they can before they're inevitably cut down by Skulltaker and his angry demon rhinos from hell. They're up to 1,200 value. They've done great, and they're forcing these mobile elements to give chase and continue exhausting themselves while Alarielle attacks in from the rear. But she's low, and Skulltaker has set his sights on her. There's some powerful single target debuffs that will make her cry. Nicely timed Earthblood, and maybe a Star of Avalor will be required. Indeed, he'll pop that and retreat, using his infantry as a meat shield and a cushion to allow the pigeon to escape back into the sky. The problem is that, again, with so few units left on the field, I'm not sure why the Eagle isn't under that star. She should be healing right now. There's only like 7 or 8 units to micro. You just dropped the star. She needs to be under that. He's going to notice it, but lost out on a good 7 or 8 seconds of healing and only caught the tail end of it. She could have probably gotten pretty close to the heal cap if she just stayed under it for the full duration. Unfortunately, not going to happen, so she's still low. But the High Elves have all the numbers now, and more Earthbloods. There will be more healing for Alarielle and the rest of the army. And in fact, the Blood Crushers crumbled out, chasing after the Shadow Walkers. That's crazy. I did not expect that. Now, we have said before, Blood Crushers are kind of squishy. Warline's doing a good job finishing off the Bloodwake Berserkers, but they weren't really going to make any impact anyways. I think they were basically shattered. But good on them, making sure they do not return. And now it is quite literally Skulltaker is the only one left. He's at 29 kills. I believe he needs 40 or 45 to activate his Cloak of Skulls. So he does not have the missile resist or immune to flanking yet. But that will kick in very soon. Surrounded by Warlions, Azure Spears, and the remnants of those Sword Masters. Shadow Walkers will probably pile in pretty soon too. And honestly, I thought Khorne had this one in the bag. Suddenly it has turned on its head. Demonic instability has reared its ugly head. And some of those units that maybe shouldn't be quite as squishy as they are in game, Blood Crushers being a prime example, disappeared in melee against Shadow Walkers. I mean, frankly, Shadow Walkers do have poison and 42 melee attack, 39, 40 melee defense, so they're not that easy to kill, especially when you're already wounded, and those Blood Crushers were, but still surprised to see them crumble out in that manner. Either way, Skulltaker about to activate his Cloak of Skulls. There are some shots coming in from the Illyrian Reaver archers, and Alarielle overhead doesn't really want to go into melee, especially not now. And this is what's so interesting about Skulltaker as a one-man army. Not the archetype I would have expected going into this DLC. I would have thought he'd be like a duelist, very good at isolating single targets and killing them, and he is that. But this immune to flanking is a very interesting mechanic, because it means if you get a full surround off on him, he's not taking those debuffs that you would normally expect to see. No morale penalties, no melee defense penalties, and he's getting plus 25 armor and plus 20% missile resist. That armor is also a very big deal, because normally in a late game scenario, you look at something like a Skull Crusher, Blood Crusher, what have you, it starts out with 110 armor or something. Well, that's going to drop a lot because they're exhausted. It's not going to drop for him that much because he's getting that 25 armor in late game scenarios. And then he gets Hellblade. So basically, the later the battle goes, the stronger this dude gets. And he's going to get even stronger when Unyielding Assault is actually working properly. Yeah, I mean, in the late game scenario, he's at 74 melee attack right now, 700 weapon strength. He's at 2,300 damage value, about to hit 100 kills. And there are very few lords in Immortal Empires who could do anything like this, because when you're fully surrounded by chaff and by mass and by bodies, and you get rear attacked, it's over. It doesn't matter if you're Kolek, it doesn't matter if you're Archaon. You better end that game real quick. You better land that killing blow on the Lord, or the game's going to end, because your leadership drops very heavily. your melee defense drops to 0. You're getting a high weapon strength Great Eagle, or whatever the hell, attacking you from behind. It hurts. It doesn't feel good. It's a recipe for disaster for 99% of the lords currently in Warhammer 3. But Skulltaker's in the thick of it, still. Reaping skulls, and every time the Everqueen has landed to rear attack, she has been punished heavily for it. Even amidst this throng of bodies, she's down to 700 HP. 1 or 2 more attacks from Skulltaker could seal it if she decides to land. So she has to let the infantry and the cavalry do whatever they can now. She does not want to go back in. Every 90 seconds, Bloody Onslaught will debuff the spears or the Illyrian Reaver archers. And the entire time, that bonus versus infantry, that absurd weapon strength is going to work and carving them up. So for like 80% of that battle, we weren't even talking about Skulltaker. We're like, oh, well, he's not really doing that much. I mean, he's helping support the cavalry. He's killed some Dragon Princes. That's nice. He's up to 12 kills 9 minutes in. And suddenly, he is soloing an army all by himself. He is dropping down to 1600 HP. The spears have surrounded him. Remnants of the Swordmasters getting their armor-piercing values in there too. Even the Reaver archers are shooting him now. That missile resistance is going to make the shooting basically irrelevant. He doesn't care about it at all. He's up to 182 kills, and he's still going strong. They're running out of time here. The balance of powers are beginning to shift in Khorne's favor. They've got to do something, and this is where I think it's really important to not just play to not lose, but play to win. I think you have to commit Alarielle. I think you have to send her back in because there's just no way that what he has remaining will do enough to cause Skulltaker to crumble out. The dude is having too much goddamn fun right now. I mean, look at this. Look at the heads rolling. The Slayer is just, I mean, he's living up to his namesake without question, decapitating everyone who gets close. And I think as the Illyrian Reaver archers charge in from both sides with these cavalry, Alarielle the Everqueen has to go in. Sure, the rear attacks may not help. Sure, Skulltaker, with his duelist trait or his ability to isolate an individual target in and amongst a throng of bodies, might still kill you. But you need her weapon strength, you need her melee attack, and indeed, he will go back in, but it might have been a little bit too little and a little bit too late. 681 HP on Alarielle. The rest of the cavalry is so close to death. 1 or 2 more swings will finish them for good. And Skulltaker, he is going to end up soloing the High Elf Warhost all by his little lonesome. What a freak of nature. I'm not kidding. I think there are maybe like 3 or 4 other lords in a similar situation who could have carried that game. Now, it's hard to know because Terror is such a unique modifier and its ability to cause mass routes can always change things. Skulltaker does not cause Terror, so that's a knock against him for sure. But if we take a look at what the units did on this battlefield, I mean, he got 4,000 value there, man. And 90% of that value was in the back half of that battle when he was all alone. That is insane. I really can't think of very many lords, heroes, or units in this game that can do anything like that. So that immune to flanking, that Cloak of Skulls, ginormous impact in this battle. Well played from the Bloodwake Berserkers too. They did great. Both them and the Swordmasters actually both paid for themselves and had a really fun cinematic duel there in the mid stages of the game where they clashed in the center. Dragon Princes and the cavalry and the Alarielle micro in general I think was quite good. I think this is a really hard matchup for the High Elves right now, and he played it really well and basically had Khorne on the ropes there. The rest of the army was gone. But Skulltaker and that aggression from HDS paid huge dividends, and we saw a one demon army, dude. Crazy to watch. Hope y'all enjoy it.